the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Tuesday, June the 1st in the year 2021. And no matter if you're listening to one of the audio platforms, you can catch the podcast, the Odyssey app, or Apple Podcast, just to name a couple. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, I want to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes a part of your day. Lined up for today on today's show, in segment number 2, we're going to talk about how the dead period being over, how it affects Chris Holtman in his recruiting. Segment 3, what if Ohio State went independent permanently? But before we get to all of that, I want to make sure to remind you to check out the Locked On Big Ten podcast, because there's simply no better place to get all the news on the Big Ten Conference than with Big Ten Ben Stevens and the Locked On Big Ten podcast. Follow the Locked On Big Ten podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your fine podcast. Today is the day that many people have been waiting for. You, myself, and so many others. The dead period in recruiting is over. Started last year, March of 2020, and it just ended on, at midnight, May 31st, June 1st, whichever day you want to call it. But it did end at midnight, just about 8, 9, 10 hours ago for the time of this recording. The dead period is over. During the dead period, these things were or can now happen. Prospects can now walk inside a college football facility and visit campus. They can take an official visit, etc. And college coaches can host and attend camps. Think about this. A college coach that is used to these types of things happening every year during the recruiting cycle, not just your football, which is a football school. Football's going to be the focus. Basketball's really good as well. But with football coaches right now, they're going to camps. And I know Jeremy Birmingham from Letterman Row and Austin Ward, they went down to Texas to watch a practice, actually. Quinn Ewers High School, they watched a practice, and they were really amazed with how he threw. And we were talking about how they really enjoy just knowing or just seeing the growth that athletes in Texas have from having spring practice, padded practice for the football team. And so this time of year for coaches, they're used to the busyness in the spring, the busyness. I'm going from this school to that school, from that state to that state, looking and getting an eye and putting their 2 eyes on recruits and for individuals that they possibly want. Also, one thing that was missed right now is the AAU circuit. Normally, April. Now, I'm not all in the dates and things like that, but I do know there's some things that happen here locally in, I believe, April. Right after the end of the high school basketball season, you do get some of not just the AllStar games, but you do get some AAU-style tournaments that happen. AAU tournaments are going to be going on now throughout the rest of the summer, and you're going to get coaches like a Chris Holtman and some of his assistants going to some of these camps, some of these tournaments, to get their eyes on these individuals that they are looking forward to. Right now, it is scheduled. And it's planning Ohio State is planning to host or have 51 official visits in the month of June. The month of June alone, as well as have about 200 visitors as well. This is amazing. This is wild. This is crazy. This is also possibly going to affect the game day official visits that Ohio State might have. Ohio State is planning and probably will have more of your visits happening right now. They're going to have a lot more visits in June than normal. So with that being the case, you're going to find that the game day recruits that are coming in official visits wise going to be a lot less, and you're going to see a lot of commitments happening the month of June and the month of July. A lot of you have had your name or have your ear or your eyes focused on one man, JT Tui Malowau, JT Tui Maloau. I hope I said his name correctly. I've listened to a few YouTube videos trying to get that correctly. He is the number one recruit in the class of 2021. And I think it's very wise that he has waited until this time, until the recruiting dead period was over, to be able to make official visits, five of them, before deciding where he wanted to play his collegiate football. He is a defensive lineman. This is according to 24/7 Sports. 6'4.5", 277 pounds, right up to 280. Not a problem with me. Number one player in the country. He does play at Eastside Catholic in Sammamish, Washington. That's a whole lot easier to say. Just look at it and pronounce that thing. Now, you're going to like the next thing I'm going to say before getting to his recruiting schedule for this month. Crystal Ball, 24/7 Sports does a phenomenal job of predicting where athletes will go, where they will play the football. There are 4 crystal ball predictions right in front of me. I believe I could get to 6. I know I could get to 4. Let's check this out live together. Yep, there are 6 crystal ball predictions via 24/7 Sports, and they all have him going to Ohio State. Now, the confidence varies from 1 to a 6. There's 1 6. There's 2 5s. There's 1 4. There's 1 3, and there's 1 1. But the one that most people like, Director of Football Recruiting for 24/7 Sports, Steve Wiltfong, has the recruit, or JT Tui Maloau. I'm going to try and keep saying his name to get it correct. His barometer, 1 to 10, it is a 5, which is a medium. If Ohio State can get this young man to join this class and be on campus in the fall, it is a win for Ryan Day. It is a win for the football team. It is a win for everybody. The schedule that this young man has in line for official visits right now, this is the only schools he's looking to attend: Washington first, and then USC, and then Ohio State, and then Oregon, and then Alabama, in that order. You might say Ohio State being in the middle, it is a detriment. It is bad. The only one that I think might be okay is Alabama being at the end, because Nick Saban has his own recruiting tactics that none of the other coaches can use. But Ohio State being in the middle is good. You go to your first 2 schools, you hit Ohio State in the middle. And then you go to Oregon, and then you go to Alabama. Think about that travel. Ohio State going to Oregon, back across some more time zones to go to Alabama. That's a lot of travel, even for a young man in Ohio State. Before the travel gets crazy, right smack dab in the middle, they will just do whatever they got to do their pitch, Ryan Day do his thing, and let the chips fall where they may. Let's go ahead and step away very quickly. When we come back, we'll talk about the dead period and how it affects Chris Holtman and the Ohio State basketball roster, because they have some holes to fill. How they do it? Will it happen soon? We'll discuss that when we come back. But first, check this out. RockAuto.com is a family business serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. Go to RockAuto.com to shop for auto and body parts from hundreds of manufacturers. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose brands, specifications, and even prices you prefer. Best of all, prices at RockAuto.com are always reliably low, and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Go to RockAuto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and all your UFC/MMA action. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for the runs to the playoffs. Head to BetOnline.ag on your laptop or mobile device to sign up today. And when you do, make sure you use promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sports book experts. It's Tuesday after a long weekend. This is a great time to remind everyone to make sure if you're an Apple Podcast listener, you fill up that review section with 5-star reviews. Now, I understand some of you may listen to the Odyssey app or Spotify or one of the numerous audio ways you can check Locked on Buckeyes. But if you're on Apple Podcast or if you're not on it right now, but you have it on your phone, go there quickly. Hit the review section, 5 stars, and then even leave a quick comment and review of the show so more people can enjoy the same podcast, the Ohio State Buckeyes podcast, you enjoy every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That is correct. The new schedule for the year, until further notice, is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Today is Tuesday. Only reason there was a Tuesday show this week is because, well, your boy took Memorial Day off. There will be bonus episodes coming up periodically, but every episode will for sure come Monday, Wednesday, Friday until further notice. I think lost in the sauce, I think lost in what everybody has been talking about lately, is Chris Holtman can't go nowhere either. Well, he hasn't been able to go anywhere either. I mentioned it earlier, but the focus has all been on football and the football recruiting and how the football coaches can't go anywhere and the football recruiting analysts and coordinators can't really recruit the way that they're used to it. It's all a football. But might I remind you, there is a man by the name of Christopher Holtman, going government name today. Yeah, let's go ahead and go with that. By the name of Christopher Holtman, that uses this time wisely. Uses this time so he doesn't waste time. Uses this time because he knows that there is a great chance either being able to go out to high school games or the AllStar games that are normally right now, not just the Jordan Brand Classic or McDonald's All-American game, but State of Ohio AllStar games that are played right here where I am. There's an Indiana-Kentucky AllStar game that I'll be going to very, very soon. I believe it's at a couple Saturdays from now. I'll be going to that. Why? Because I love the high school basketball. I want to see what these young men, what I can project from them, what they might do at the next level. Well, I've gone to some of these events where either in season or out of season. I've been at events where Calipari's been there, Coach K's been there, Rick Pitino, the one that's won national championships. Rick Pitino has been there, and it's kind of the who's who. Tom Izzo's been there. Tom Crean, when he was coaching at IU, was there. Chris Holtman was there when he was at Butler. Dane Fife, who's at Michigan State, now at Indiana. I mean, all these coaches are going to different shootouts or different tournaments and AAU tournaments. Why? Because they want to know what's going to happen. They want to get the eye, the physical eye, their eye on these athletes. You know what I mentioned last week when I think it was on a Friday show, when I mentioned that mid-major coaches might not play high major guaranteed games against high major D1 schools because they don't want those coaches to get their eyes a live evaluation on their athlete. I get it, but they're going to get an evaluation. No matter if it's them going there live or somebody else going there and getting that thing live, they're going to get an evaluation some way, somehow, and it will be live. But hear me out. With Chris Holtman not being able to go out and recruit the way that he's normally done it, and he has to stay, away from these recruits and not be going to their games, tournament games, and all of that kind of stuff, it's very, very interesting and maybe hard, very, very hard for Chris Holtman to really navigate uncharted waters to try to figure out how in the world can I fill a roster, because there are holes after holes after holes, numerous, which is why earlier I mentioned, do you want to build a team via recruiting high school athletes or via the transfer portal? Because no matter what, if you get a high school athlete or somebody transfers in, that young man can still transfer unless he's a grad transfer and he has one more year of eligibility left. Outside of that, these guys, they can transfer. Basketball athletes, their mindset is different than football players. And those of you that may know a basketball player, you may say, yeah, Jay, you're right. That man, his thought process is a little bit different, a little bit odd, a little bit off compared to me in the way the football players that I know. But Chris Holtman, 2022 recruiting class. There are 3 guards that are hard verbal commits right now that it seems like those aren't going anywhere. They have different skill sets, but Chris Holtman still needs a big man. I know I keep playing in a hypothetical game because we have to, because we don't know which way these young men are going. But let's just say going into this season, let's just say Washington Jr. and Liddell end up leaving. Do you feel comfortable with the front line of Justin Arns, Justice Suing, and Zed Key? Or Arns and Suing and Joey Brunk? I don't. I personally don't. I think both Brunk and Key are backups in this upcoming season. Oh, I forgot you got Kyle Young. Sorry. Forgive me. Totally spaced it. Totally messed up. You could probably have Arns in the backcourt, but you're going to have Jamari Wheeler on the other backcourt. You put Arns in there. You're going to have Suing. You're going to have Young. Okay, do you want to put Key and do you want to put Key or Brunk in there with Young? I don't. Once again, I don't. Are their skill set similar? Absolutely. Do I think Brunk is a starting big man in the Big Ten? Absolutely not. So you're kind of seeing the dilemma. Chris Holtman needs to figure out what he's going to do with his big man position. That is probably, to me, the biggest hurdle or the biggest key for Chris Holtman right now is to figure out this big man position via recruiting. Yes, you can bring guys in from the transfer portal every year. Yes, Ohio State is not your top tier or your blue blood in college basketball. Your North Carolina, your Duke, your Kansas, your Kentucky. Some put Indiana in that conversation. That is not where that Ohio State is not in that upper echelon or top tier as far as blue bloods in college basketball. However, what you do find is that Ohio State basketball is a national brand. You could thank this to Thad Matta and to what Chris Holtman has done in his early tenure as head man for the Ohio State basketball program. What Chris Holtman can do, needs to do, should do is find out a way. I'm not telling him how to do it, but find out a way or put a plan together. Say X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, great. If you need to have 20 different ways to fill that roster spot, go ahead and do it. This is a good time to start. I understand the one and done era. I understand everything. But if you show guys that you're going to be able to progress them and help them mature as a player and help them be all they can be, so down the road, if it's up to them to say, hey, I want to go pro or I want to stay in school, they have the right options, they have the right tools, and they have gotten a whole lot better. So they at least are able to have a shot to go pro either before the eligibility is up or at the end of their time as being a basketball player at the Ohio State University. One more time out. When we come back, we'll discuss some things about if Ohio State goes on the independent. Will it be a good thing if they did go kind of hypothetical? If they went independent permanently, would it be the wisest move for them? But before we get to all that, check this out. You have heard me talk about Built Bar for a very, very, very long time. But did you know the Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors plus the occasional limited time flavor? Some of those flavors are coconut almond, and coconut almond. Those are 2 of my favorites. Not really a big coconut guy, but Built Bar's version of coconut and coconut almond, it tastes good. Also cherry, raspberry, mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, and salted caramel. So many flavors. There's a flavor for everyone. Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're also healthy, low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber, and they're also great for the keto diet. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you will get 15% off your next order. Once again, go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15, and you will get 15% off your next order at BuiltBar.com. And as we roll on here on Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. One thing I know sports fans love to do is be a part of a show. I understand sometimes people don't want to send an email or send a tweet or send a message via the direct message on Twitter. But there's a way you can use that thing you're probably utilizing to listen or watch the show right now to talk back or to be featured here on the show. 850-462-5442 is the Jay Stevens hotline devoted to shows that he is on. 850-462-5442. If you want to call or text that line and just leave a comment, a question, or a concern, you might end up hearing your question and your name on the show, and we might utilize this to have frequent segments where your calls and texts are featured every single day. It all depends on how frequent you guys send some to me. We may do it once a week, may do it twice a week. If it's daily, we will go daily. Once again, the number 850-462-5442. It is a legit line. This is not a gimmick, a scam, or anything. You call or text that line, leave a voicemail, or simply send a text. In the very next show, we will try to fit that into the final segment of that day's show. Remember last week when it was exposed that the Ohio State kind of the sequence of events or the conversations that were had when Kevin Warren announced, even though he was not the one that made the vote, he was the mouthpiece, and he announced that Ohio State and the rest of the Big Ten schools would not have a fall season. This was less than a week after they ended up putting out a revised schedule, and everybody got their hopes up. Everybody got excited. Then all of a sudden, no season at all. And maybe about a month later, we're going to have a season. 9 games in 9 weeks, not very ideal with the situation based off how people were handling it. Decision makers were calling things, but that was Kevin Warren. But Kevin Warren ended up making some comments about the parents, and the parents weren't very happy. I think Kevin Warren, in his position, he was very naive and really wasn't advised very well. Let's put it that way. He wasn't advised very well, and if this is the kind of man that Kevin Warren is, I don't know him. I can't say, yes, this is him. But if this is the kind of individual that he is, just say maybe somebody advised him, or it's just him out of his just own mouth and his own hands relaying this message, double check that. Read twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times before hitting send, because you never know who might see that message or that email or that text that you didn't intend to see. But in the surface, in the conversation, I believe it was Christina Johnson, president at Ohio State, who ended up coming out and asking if Ohio State could go independent. And it got me thinking, would a permanent thing for Ohio State to go independent, would it be wise? Or would there be so many harsh effects to that it wouldn't be wise? I think scheduling-wise, it would actually be a lot easier than people think. I would not go the current Notre Dame route where they're playing 5 ACC games. Honestly, I think that watered down, that dilutes, and then actually makes your schedule a whole lot easier, and it makes you getting into the college football playoff a whole lot harder than it already is. Think about it. If you're independent, you're only playing 12 games, no conference championships. So Notre Dame, ACC championship game last year, but in a typical year, there is no conference championship game, so they're only playing 12 games. If somebody goes 12 if you go 11-1 and somebody else goes 12-1, 2 other schools go 12-1, think about it. Not only that extra win, but when did they win their conference championship game? Did they lose in a conference championship game in close fashion? What actually happened, close fashion that is, what actually happened for that little detail for there to be not just one more win, but when did that win come? Those things affected. I do think Ohio State's prestige, you would think, would allow them to get into a 14 playoff a whole lot easier than, say, Notre Dame. But we think about most prestigious schools or programs in college football. I got 5. USC, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and Alabama. Any order, you put them in your order, but those are, to me, the blue bloods of college football. Some say Notre Dame, no. Go throughout the history, not recency bias. Go throughout the history. You can see that those 5 schools meet the blue blood criteria. There's a reason why in college basketball earlier in the show, I mentioned only 4. Some say Indiana, but I got 4. You could say 5 for each. You want to put Indiana in there for a blue blood in college basketball. College basketball, some people say, well, what about Arizona? Prestige, baby. Prestige. What about UConn? Prestige, baby. I get it. I understand it. I get it. But for Ohio State, if they go independent, if they were to permanently go independent, I think the schedule would be harder. I think year in, year out, the Big Ten football schedule, this even goes back to 10 plus years ago. if you go independent, you could have a whole lot harder. Now you're going to have probably 2 or 3. Let's count them, 3 of your regional rivals. Of course, you have Michigan. Ohio State could pick either Cincinnati, Kentucky, Tennessee. You could pick West Virginia. You can pick Indiana. You can pick Purdue. You can pick Michigan State. I mean, the regional rivalries, you already got one. If you want to play Illinois every single year, go right ahead. That's another rivalry. But you're going to have 3 regional rivalries. You might try to hit you might get rivalries in other geographical sections of the country. A Southern. That can be either SEC or Big 12, because both of those are technically, a lot of those are the South. You can go the West. You could go the North, the Northeast. There's so many different areas to go there. But I do think Ohio State, if they go independent, it would be a harder schedule year in and year out. Because outside of Oregon, Penn State, Indiana, maybe this year, Wisconsin, maybe in Iowa. Ohio State's schedule really is not that hard year in, year out. I don't think Ohio State plays Wisconsin or Iowa this year. They play Oregon, Penn State. What do you want to get with James Franklin in that squad? You don't know this year, especially with Sean Clifford as a quarterback. Indiana, it's all up to the quarterback. I mean, they're going to have a good defense, probably have a good running game, good O-line. It's all up to the quarterback, and I don't trust Michael Penix Jr. I don't. But year in, year out, if you have an independent schedule, that does make your schedule a lot harder. What would a schedule look like? Well, we might discuss that later in the week. Jay putting his mind together and saying, well, independent Ohio State schedule, how will it look? How many rivalry games will there be? What kind of games will we actually possibly see down the road? Who can fill a 12-game schedule? That sounds like an idea and a plan for Friday to end the week. Guys, this has been a fun show. Glad to be back. Felt a little rocky at times, but we're finally to the end. You can follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. You can send all your emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Remember the new schedule for the show. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Altered this week due to Memorial Day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Occasional bonus episode or a little extra thrown at you in case there is some news that comes out that warrants it to be said and talked about immediately. Speaking about immediately, the show is over, but now is a perfect time before you put your phone away. Subscribe and head over and search for the Locked On Today podcast, because that is a place to get more of the sports news you need in less time with the Locked On Today podcast. Follow the Locked On Today podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your fine podcast.